Yeah, baby. Yeah. The Mac is back. Back with another video. Hello, the initiated. My name is Marcus Nicola, and today we're having a look at Heavyocity's Master Sessions Ensemble drums. Now, Master Sessions seems to be a selection or a pack of libraries. There are 4 of them. Ensemble drums, ethnic drum ensembles, ensemble metals, and ensemble woods. Now, initially I thought I would do all of them in one video, but looking at some of the folders in here, I think that's too much to ask. I don't know, maybe it's not, we'll see, but I think we'll do all of these in individual videos. I thought we'd start with ensemble drums because that has the most sort of, I don't know, general name out of all of them. Now the reason I want to check this out is I'm still writing this game soundtrack, and I'm using Damage 2 and also a bit of 1 quite actually very extensively, and also DM307 I think is the correct name. Let me double check that. Let me find it actually from somewhere in this somewhere in this website, because I always mix up numbers quite badly, so I don't want to get that wrong. Yes, DM307. Good job, Marcus. I absolutely love that library as well. So I thought, hey, there could be more Heavyocity stuff there that kind of fits the palette, because I think as much as I love Damage 2, it has its own sound. I mean, every single library does, and that's a good thing. But when you're writing something specific, maybe one thing doesn't fit the entire palette. Now, that being said, I don't yet know if Damage 2 doesn't cover the entire soundtrack, but you know, I want to explore more options, and obviously I knew about Master Sessions by Heavyocity, but I haven't, you know, laid my hands on it yet, and this is kind of like I think the Damage lineup is so big and so successful and so popular that it easily, you know, shadows a lot of other things that company might put out. And I think Master Sessions, at least from my individual perspective, has sort of stayed in the shadow a bit more. So but that being said, Damage is absolutely awesome, so there's no reason for me to expect that Master Sessions are any other way. But yeah, very curious to see what they are like and actually, you know, get to play them, because that is always the, you know, end all be all. Helps you decide what things actually are like. But that's the reason I wanted to check this out, to see, you know, what it does. And obviously the more content for this channel, the better, and hopefully this helps you decide whether these libraries are for you. So I did send Heavyocity a message, hey, interested in checking these out. They kindly enough said yes. Might as well touch on transparency at this point. So yes, they did send me the copy. That being said, all opinions, both in good and bad, are my own. I haven't been asked to say anything one way or the other, nor would I ever do that. And I'm not being paid to film this video or edit the video or anything else. Cool. So, taking myself to the website to kind of educate myself a bit about what's in here. So they describe this as epic drums, period. Ensemble drums features unique multi-sampled ensemble kits and over 300 tempo synced loops, delivering a thunderous collection of cinematic and unique drums. Cool. So pretty much sounds like a similar layout, or the content is similar to Damage. You have the individual ones, the individual instruments, actually in a playable form, and then you have loops. So, you know, simple enough. The This is recorded at Bunker Studios in Brooklyn. 3,000 square space. Square foot space, I should say. I knew something was missing there. Bunch of analog gear, obviously. SSL 4040E, BAE microphone pre's, vintage mics and modern mics. Cool. I mean, in this front, you know, this is what you should expect, pretty much from any company at this point. But I mean, certainly Heavyocity, you know, bringing the productional quality to the table, at least. You know, always in the area of tracking stuff for sure. Mixture of Tyco's rototoms, field bass drums and snares, concert and bass drums, floor toms, and large containers. Cool. That's nice. I always like when percussion libraries bring different things to the table, because there are so many objects and things out there when you bash them, which I often do as a drummer. You always, whenever you lay hands on something, and drummers know this, I know you know this, you touch something and you want to see what it makes. You just play things. I mean, we're just always playing things, whatever we're touching, and then you sometimes hear, okay, that's a really cool sound, and you wish you could sample it. Obviously you can if you have a field recorder with you, which would be cool. I don't have enough curiosity to start building my own samples at this stage, at least. Probably in the future, maybe. But yeah, the point is, always nice to have different types of content. And I love just taking, you know, like, toms are immensely versatile as well. And this is why I love Tom Factory by Fracture Sounds as well, because it is so focused on that aspect, because you can get so many different sounds out of different toms. And the same thing goes for bass drums and etc. And, you know, thinking about what is in Damage 2, it has a lot of good, strange out there things like, you know, trash cans, etc. So I always love that. Then they touch on the loops, and that's pretty much the web page. Tech specs: 3.5 gigabytes uncompressed, and 1.9 gigs on disk with NI lossless compression. 1,650 samples over what says plus, so yeah. And I think that's about it. Requirements: powered by Contact Engine, Contact 5 player, version 5.5.1.451 or higher required. And minimum system requirements: Mac OS X 10.10, Intel Core Duo, 2 gigs of RAM, PC Windows 7, latest service pack 32, 64-bit. Intel Core Duo. Okay. Fair enough. Cool. Enough about that. Let's take ourselves into the instrument. I'm going to open up this browser here, which unfortunately you can't see my beautiful face, but you know, things can't be perfect. So folder structure. This is what opens up first. So you got kits and loops. So simple enough. We go into kits first. We got effects versions, which I would presume are, you know, the treated versions, or you know, I probably further taken versions of these drums. We're gonna start with individual ensembles, and what I have loaded up here is the low drums all. So we're gonna go through these first. Interestingly enough, they have these folders with high RAM versions. So I would presume they just load up absolutely everything regarding that instrument in there. Kind of scared to look at those, but we'll see. I want to touch on the loops really quickly at some point, just to get an idea of what's in there, but primarily we're going to be playing these instruments hands-on as much as possible. In terms of what you'll be hearing, it's only ensemble drums in action. I don't add any effects in my DAW. We only have a limiter on the master bus to make the level decent for this video. That being said, it's made to be as transparent as possible, as to not color the sound. That being said, this is a percussion library, which has a lot of transient information there. So some of those very high peaks will pretty much have to be a bit leveled, just so that we get a decent, level for this video, so that my voice is somewhat balanced with this, and that this video isn't so quiet that you're just going to turn it off immediately compared to everything else on the internet. So, but that being said, I'm keeping this as transparent as possible. I'm watching the peaks all the time, and I try and keep it as representative of this as possible. If you do hear distortion or clipping, it is the limiter in action, and if it isn't, I'll let you know, and I'll probably let you know either way. So that's about it. If you see me do something with the mouse here and nothing's happening on the interface, I'm probably adjusting the limiter as we go along, and I will be having to adjust that as we move along, because all of the instruments are probably going to be of a different level. So, briefly looking at the interface here, you got pages for main, then you have TFX, which, how TFX is different from effects, I don't know that. Equalizer, cool. So pretty simple. So yeah, I don't know what T is referring to. I was thinking time, but we have distortion, lo-fi, filter, panner, delay, and then equalizer page. We have 3 channels where you can control low, mid, high, and then control the Q factor and the frequency, and pretty basic stuff. So main page, we got master effects, volume envelopes, and in the middle we have twist, which is probably some kind of version of punish. Oh no, sorry, it isn't, because we have a punish page on its own. So twist is something else. And then you have a mix window here in the middle. So let's start playing and get our bearings here. Alright, so these are pitched. I'm assuming the yellow signifies the original sample. Let's play the other blue zone. Let me pull back the limiter a bit, because that's a bit too touchy. Still a bit, there's clearly some kind of processing going on. I'm going to pull down the limiter all the way and then add it in based on the level I see here. I think I'm going to add about 3.5 dB of gain there. There's definitely distortion coming out of the device here. Or something is definitely going on. Punish isn't even on. Sounds kind of like a compressor is struggling to chew on the audio there. But as far as I can tell, we don't have anything on here. So it just must be in the processing of the sample. And it's not every note, like it's when... Okay, there you can clearly hear it. But it's less apparent when you play louder. So it makes me think it's in the sample. Some of those lower dynamics are kind of bringing that distortion or struggling compression in there. We have these key switches over here, which I have no idea what they do. They clearly cut out something. I wonder if I look at these pages, can I see anything change? Yes, so is controlled distortion, filter, delay. This is set to be kind of a latch, or should I say hold. So you can turn these on momentarily like this. Okay, that's kind of interesting for sure. It's definitely damage, at least two. You have these momentary effects. They can be really, really cool. So that's an extra utility to have. So that's a very, very long release, sustain, resonance there. Yeah, I mean, the velocity mapping is great. I feel like I can access what's in here very easily, and it translates very nicely. To me, this sounds a tad bit too processed, like there is some kind of compression or something that is on some of those medium velocity notes. It's kind of like there. You get that, which could be also a natural recording, because that can happen depending on what's happening in the recording, but it's not a super pleasant texture to my ear. So I would presume that's either in the tracking or the processing that they've done for the sample. So this was low drums all. I mean, as far as I can tell, we got two different recordings on these two different blue zones. And I mean, these are pitched, so we're really just dealing with two drums as far as I can tell here. And again, if I'm wrong about this, it doesn't reveal itself here on the page. So let's do low drums tight. Same thing. These are mapped in a different place. So I like the top texture and the smack on the hit. That's very nice. In the low register, it has a like the transient part is very pleasant and nice, but it gets pretty muddled very quickly if you do very close notes to one another. So it doesn't really express that lower range of the dynamic perfectly, at least to me. These also have a lot of reverb on them, which, again, as far as I can tell, there's nothing on here. So it must be in the actual samples and their processing. In the... Okay, so in the bottom here, this seems to be like the explanation for the what the key switches do here. And amp I don't hear much difference there, but I assume it's doing something. Should be like an amp effect, maybe. Let me try and see. Yeah, as far as I can tell, there's no master. No master reverb going on here. But delay, that's off. Modulation, that's off. Reverb, there we go, but that's off as well. Okay, so yeah, it's in the samples. That's a bit much to my taste, so I would back that down with some processing, because it does kind of eat up. It does make the sound very dense as you add notes in there. Also, a bit of that same processing in terms of that compression stuff going on. Yeah, that's pretty heavy-handed on the reverb. Let's do next up. This is called Snares Off. So yeah, in terms of like the lowest dynamic levels, this doesn't seem like it's super dynamic and expressive. Like the quietest note I can play is and that's still like, to me, like a low medium hit. So it's really difficult, well, it's probably impossible to do like a very low rumbling build up. That's the quietest note I can play. It's really good for those big hits. Yeah, so there is quite a bit of that reverb in the samples. Obviously, that's based on the space they recorded in, or if they added that in, you know, post-production, that could be another option. But it is a bit heavy-handed to my taste. I tend to like my drums pretty upfront and close and tight, and then add just a tad of reverb to give them more body and size. So I would need to deal with that somehow. Obviously, we do need to look at whether we have these different mic positions. All right, well, I mean, that kind of takes care of a lot of that. So this is, as far as I can tell, unfortunately, they don't name them as what they are. It's just channel 1, 2, and 3, which made me think about another configuration. But I mean, I would love to see these as mic positions versus just channel numbers. But this is the what I presume is the close one. Let me boost the level here a bit. Again, going super quiet, that dynamic level doesn't exist. Nice. I really love how this has a very strong resonance there in the mid. Let me see where that is actually. Definitely something around 1, 2, 5, but I think up higher there's also something. That's pretty characterful. Obviously not going to be for every situation, but yeah. Channel 2. Pretty kind of meaty and growly. Obviously, it has so many like impact points. The transients are pretty rich and kind of crisp. It sounds like the snares are almost on, but they're apparently not. So, all right, that's pretty interesting. What was I going to say about this? Yeah, again, the low dynamic doesn't exist, or it's pretty high. But these jive pretty well together. Again, they sound like they definitely have some processing on there, and it gets a bit too cramped to my taste. I would love to have that be a bit more natural and then add it in myself. And here is the channel 3. Yeah, I mean, that's super reverberant. That's basically just ambience of a space. I'm surprised that these are, I mean, it kind of makes sense that they're set to be at the same level, because like this would be their vision of the mix, I would presume. And then you can adjust that accordingly. But yeah, I mean, that to me that's a bit much. If I try the close and mid. Cool. Yeah, that's it's very meaty. This is definitely sounds to me more like a big hitting percussion library thing. Obviously trailer music comes to mind, but anything that goes for more like a hard hitting epic sound. In fairness to the demo, the library makers here, I want to go back to the low drums and mute or try the different mic positions, just so that I can actually make a fair statement about that. So this is the low drums all once again. Okay, so here you can still hear pretty heavy-handed. Again, that I'm not sure. To me, it sounds like compression, but it also be just the tracking of it. You hear the resonance of the drum beautifully, which I like, but it's again, there's a bit too much of that, you know. resonance or crushing going on. The mid position, again, same thing here. This is the other sample. I must emphasize, it's not the other one doesn't have this issue. Well, actually, that does compress a bit more. What about the close mic? This definitely has more dynamic range than the snares. Yeah, I mean that's a lot of ambience. So that could be good to kind of blend in there, but I would not make it that apparent myself. Let's go to Snares On, and see what those sound like. Let's go straight up to the mic positions, because we know that probably the ambience is going to be too much to my taste. Okay, so super thick, very meaty. Again, these samples are different, or the drums are different. Or maybe the drums are the same, but the style of sampling is different. So obviously we're in the close mic position here. So it's a bit like very cramped, but that's easy to open up with reverb, and indeed that's what I would prefer to do. A lot of great things going on here. Very kind of hazy, puffy mids on the snare resonance themselves, and a very nice snap when you go to the high dynamics. And it doesn't become harsh. Like, it's definitely snappy, but it does that in a good way. Let's play this other one. So that's definitely more heavy-handed. It sounds like there's a tom underneath it. And here the top snap gets a bit, it's on the verge of being too harsh, but that's easy to fix with something like a spiff or something like that. But yeah, this is really good for like when you have a really dense session where something needs to build up. Let's play the channel 2. Super ballsy. It's very solid, like very thick, dense, but puffy and hazy simultaneously. I really like that. That bottom resonance might get excessive, but again, simple EQ fix. This would be really good for like a, you know, like a dense build up again. Again, I would love to have more dynamic range downwards. Just give that extra dimension of dynamics. So it is like, it doesn't want to be any quieter than that, than below that certain baseline. It's like, no, I want to go hard, Marcus. So let's test this other area. Yeah, so that's like a more hard-hitting version of that. So, you know, that again, a bit too intense to my taste, but you know, it's there if you want to use it. And then we have this super reverberant sound. Let's combine the first two ones. that being said about the dynamics, it like whatever is here is perfectly mapped. It just doesn't go quite as low as I'd want for those delicate, quieter notes, but the playability is superb. I really like the close and mid combo here. The reverb is pretty crazy on the last channel. I had something else I wanted to touch on here. Oh yes, this is actually pretty brilliant the way they've done the pitching here, because you can sort of tune your instrument, like this snare for example, to your track, and I do recommend you do that because it makes a world of a difference. So that gets a bit heavy on the pitching, and obviously these are clearly getting into the different realm, but usually if you stay in the keys around the original sample, you're still, the ear doesn't perceive that as, you know, being unnatural sounding. That's definitely darker but still realistic. This is the original plus a note next to it. But I was obviously fooling around there, but you get the idea. A bit of tuning of the drums to your track is going to go a long way and save you a lot of time in the mix phase. Next up, tom low rotos and bass drums. So it's really nice tone. Again, I'm going to mute the channel 3. So again, this is the upper region is some kind of a more edgier, harsher, harder processed version of it. There's a bit of that, again, that certain like a compressor struggling to chew on the sound a bit, kind of gives that kind of distortion that isn't quite to my taste. But let's play the lower one here. This goes a bit, expresses a bit of a gentler dynamic, but still not in the quiet area. I'd say like a low medium. But very nice texture, very nice transients. Get like a nice wet touch there. Turning into Marcus's drum lesson. Cool. Let's do the next one. This is Tom's High. Again, I'm going to turn off channel 3. Again, beautiful sound, good texture, hits hard. Yeah, these are like, you know, pretty heavy-bodied sounds. I was maybe expecting these to be kind of less edgier than Damage, and they definitely are in a sense, but they have that aggressive edge to them for sure. Trap, case, and door. I'll just play the initial mix, and then okay. Well, here we can see that there's a level mix difference here. So very snappy, transient. I'm going to turn off the ambient mic. So yeah, very hard-hitting, snappy sound. And obviously, like, if you don't use this on its own like this can be added in to really bring a lot of impact into your sound. Okay, so that was all of the individual ensembles here as far as I can tell. Then we have the high round versions, which, I mean, let's look at here. So I'm just guessing they load up just... I think we owe it to them to check these out, just in case they do extend the dynamic range. So I think that's a fair enough thing to do. Okay, so maybe let's turn off the ambient mic. So to me, it sounds like there is more. Let's play. So it definitely feels more dynamic. Let me pull back the limiter a bit. There is some of that innate compression or distortion, saturation in the samples, like when I hit really hard. But I try and take the limiter out of the equation as much as possible. Definitely feel more dynamic. So maybe this is what I'm looking for. Snare on. Again, turning off the ambient mic. So this maybe feels like it plays that tad bit better. We definitely don't get quieter dynamics there, as far as I can tell. But we'll keep that in mind. Let's do menus, ensemble menus, all. We'll just see how this pans out. Again, to my taste, I'm gonna pull back the reverb this time instead of turning it off. pretty cool. Let's push the gain just a bit. I think we can get this a bit louder. So the fullest velocities really express a nice like transient response. They hit really nice. They're crisp. That's super cool. And these are really good if you're going for that medium high, velocity, loudness dynamic. So that's really cool. Good to have this kind of a patch that combines these. And actually probably prefer this layout because it gives you, as far as I can tell, two keys for each. They could have a slight pitch difference. Yeah, I think the space, the channel 3 works, but I would just drastically reduce that, about probably like 12 or 9 dB seems to be the difference here between them. But it definitely adds a nice extension of the space there. Would I do a reverb over that? I would have to test, but could go down either way. Depends obviously on the sound. Yeah, to me these sound just like a more processed version of what's going on there. The other zone to the right. Then you have something called high gain stretch, high gain, organic stretch. Let's try out the organic because that sounds what I would go for. Actually, let's go to high ram and let's do organic high ram. Because if that expresses the dimensions of this better. So first of all, let's go find a level for the ambient mic. About minus 10 dB. So there's definitely a bit of a nasty distortion there when you hit really hard. It's definitely in the sample there. So yeah, I'm just setting the level for the limiter. So yeah, I mean that there's, in terms of, okay, let's turn punish off because that definitely makes the issue worse if it is in the sample. Yeah, I mean it's just there's that distortion in that kick. I don't know why it's expressing itself worse in this patch, I think, but cool. Let's go. Okay, so that was the menus. Pretty, I mean, simple in terms of how this is laid out. The content, what's actually you know, what's actually in here is, it's a pretty small set of things, but that's why you have the whole the whole pack of them, or the line of them. You combine different drums from you know, the ethnic one, the metal one, the wood one, and this is kind of the basic sort of, you know, meat and potatoes, more like kick drums, toms, and snares. So that kind of explains that. In terms of the processed versions here, I mean, based on what I'm hearing, I'm obviously not yearning for more processing here, but we'll do a few to, let's do low drums type effects sub something. Okay, so that's pretty interesting. These are kind of like different toolkits for different approaches. They can make your life easier and faster. This one is low drums all effect sub MW. That is the limiter. Okay, so this has the filter going clearly. Yeah, I mean, this is probably not an aspect that I'm personally very extensively going to use, but I am interested in going into the loops. Let's do loop menus. That's probably the best way to explore this, and do menus and breakouts. So in here you got straight eighths. That's my pronunciation for the day. All full, and then breakout into these different categories. I actually like this approach a lot, because you can, in this full loop menu, you can find the stuff you like and want to use, and then you can open up the breakout menu to take out the things that you don't like. And this, I believe, is a similar approach as it is in DM307, which is a really great thing. You can go to the full menus, play some kind of loop that you like, and then you hear elements that you enjoy, and then you go to the breakouts and just pick the elements that you like. So this is actually a pretty, it's a very linear process of working with these, which I really enjoy. It's actually pretty fast, pretty inspiring. You hear things you like, and then, you know, go from there. So let's play some of these loops. Yeah, really good stuff. I wasn't expecting this. I mean, knowing it's Heavyocity, I kind of was, but you know, I get the idea that this is maybe an older library. I don't actually know when this was released and in what sequence, you know, compared to Damage, etc. But I mean, these are super nice. Yeah, I mean, this is probably the strongest selling point here I've come across. But I mean, these are just so well produced and ready to go. Yeah, I mean, this is really like the Heavyocity magic. They just know this stuff really well. Great composers, great producers. The way they program this stuff just sounds super polished and ready to go. Some of the effect processing maybe a bit too much to my taste, especially on the low notes. I think some of that low size suffers due to some of the compression there or saturation. Kind of the same thing we noticed, or I noticed, in the low samples. But these are super impressive. Just to kind of demonstrate the breakouts, let's just take breakout 4, which then takes I'd presume 1/4 of those samples that we just sampled, and then it takes that quarter and breaks it down into individual elements. So yeah, very cool. And in fact, if you work with, like, this is, as I've mentioned before, my preferred way of working with percussive loops, if you do work with them. Because, and again, these can be super inspiring. You find a loop which has a quality that you like, and you just take that and you go and do your own thing, tweak it. Or then, let's say you do like this thing, then you want to combine it with other things, then you can again go to those breakout menus and combine as you wish, or tweak them. Obviously, yeah, I mean, there's so much you can do to combine these things, or just be inspired by them. But I mean, it's world class, writing and production and sound design, which is, the sound design is certainly one of Heavyocity's strong suits. So I very much do encourage you at least look at them, if not use them. Then you have these same things in triplets, which is useful because some songs need that. Yeah, I mean, in terms of the quality of these, compared to Damage 2, DM307, very much in the same camp. So like no drop in quality, or no difference in that regard. So yeah, really solid stuff. Really happy this actually is the case, and that it delivers this, because yeah, this really makes the offering super appealing this way. We have something called Mutator, which I actually don't know what it is, but I'm assuming... Okay, that's very loud. Sorry about that. Let's play around and see what it does. Okay, so crazy stuff. This is obviously some kind of a sequencer here. So here we have the play button, which changes what's happening here. You click the Mutator button here on the bottom right, and here you have this sequencer. Pretty crazy. Velocity stuff, again, you can just draw with your mouse. Length, again, draw with your mouse. And then the loop here, I would presume this chooses then the... Yep, so we're in the loop menus, which you have to remember. So now this sequencer here is telling Kontakt which loops to play. And obviously in what length and what velocity. But the controls here, if I do something like this should be now pretty wide-rangingly choosing the loops out here. And also need to see that you're cycling through these different pages. So we tweaked number 1, but it's also moving into these different pages. So as if the loops alone weren't enough, the Mutator is, well, first of all, super fast, super creative, creates very unique things and patterns very quickly. You obviously need to be tasteful in terms of how you use it, because in terms of how musical this is going to be, now, if I'm making some kind of a action movie hybrid dynamic thing, that could work out of the box. But obviously the loops are processed and they have effects on top of that, so it can get very heavy-handed. I would love to lighten that up, take off some of the effects and etc. But this is a really cool concept in terms of taking these loops and snippets, and then you can combine them into new patterns, which like exponentially blows up the potential that these things have. I actually really like this concept. It is basically endlessly creative and as I said, exponentially blows up the utility and potential of this library. So that's really cool. Let's see if there's anything else we want to cover. Obviously loops go in triplets and straight beats as well, so you have that diversity there as well. But yep, I mean, that about covers it. I'll just open up something here for the sake of the visuals. But so for me, biggest strongest selling point here is for sure the loops. They bring the crazy Heavyocity programming, creativity, production of quality, sound design to the table. Like I said, in comparison to Damage or DM307, they're very much in the same category. So they, supplement and complement one another, and you just get like this world-class level sound. In terms of the processing, it's a bit heavy-handed, a bit too heavy-handed to my taste. I would love a tad bit less of that, because then I could easily process it myself. But especially in the lows, you do hear some like compression, saturation that is a bit excessive to my ear. Obviously, this is going to be subjective to a degree, but still, well, that's what I observed here. It does definitely lean towards the aggressive edge, which oftentimes Heavyocity does, and I should emphasize that to my ear, it seems like the trend has been to kind of lessen the edge of that, because it can get a bit harsh and heavy on the ear. Like I said, with Gravity 2, pretty much every release before that, or at least a year, has been just getting better and better in this regard. They aren't as edgy and hard-hitting. They can express other aspects as well. So that's been really good, and that's an improvement in my eyes and my estimation. So that's really cool. But yeah, this does really go to the harder hitting side, so it doesn't express like the very lowest, gentlest dynamics of percussion. But if you make like trailer music, epic music, this is definitely gonna serve you very, very well. in that pursuit. And yeah, I mean, in terms of the playable instruments, they are indeed very playable, very well mapped to the velocity. Again, they don't go to that low dynamic range, but what is in there is really well programmed and mapped. I like you have some pitch control there immediately from the keys instead of having to tune it from Contact, either in this interface or the Contact one. But that allows you to tune your drums to your music. Don't know what the high RAM version difference is in terms of sound. I think one of the bass drums felt a bit more dynamic and less processed to me, but that could be placebo as far as I can tell. So yeah, let me go back here. And also, just touching on the Mutator thing, I haven't played with those a ton, but I probably should start doing that, especially for the soundtrack. I believe there's something very similar in DM307, or the same thing, but it is like just infinitely creative as far as I can tell. And it's a really brilliant concept because they take these already brilliant loops. If you don't just want to use them and you want more complexity, you want something more unique, you can easily throw in stuff into the Mutator and it just comes up with something completely new. So very cool. Those are my thoughts. If you have this at your studio or at home, let me know what you think, and let me know what you think about this video down in the comments. Thank you to Heavyocity for sending this over. And next up, we'll have a look at some of the other installations of this series. So, thank you for listening. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Finished.